Lesson 24 is about the multiplicative property of equality. Now, in this lesson, we're going to be looking at problems like we have here to begin with. Our first one is to solve 5 times x is equal to 20. We know when a number touches the variable, it means multiplication. So, in your head, can you tell me what number times 5 is equal to 20? Hopefully you said 4, because 5 times 4 is equal to 20. Now, in this lesson, we're looking at multiple ways that we can solve this. Now, using mental math to know that x is equal to 4 is a great strategy for a problem like this. Another way we could use it would be to figure out what number do we need to multiply 20 by to help us figure out x. Well, that's like asking what do we multiply 5 by to equal 1. So 5 times 1/5 is equal to 1. We're multiplying it by the reciprocal. Let's look at what happens. So we have 1/5 times 5x is going to be equal to, well, what we do on one side we have to do on the other. So we're going to multiply the 20 times 1/5. And if we do this, well, 1/5 times 5, that's 5 over 1. 1's cancel, 5's cancel. We're left with just the x. Now we're going to be solving for what x is equal to. 20 is the same thing as 20 over 1. We know 20 times 1 is 20. 1 times 5 is 5, so we get 20 over 5, and that's equal to 4. We got the same answer, x is equal to 4, just a little bit different way. Now, using this method on the right, what we just solved through, is more efficient when we've got a problem that's not so easy to use with mental math. But if you do have a problem where you can just solve it straight through, go ahead and do it. Okay? Go ahead and use your mental math skills. Just show the work that you've done to get to your final answer. Let's look at another problem. We want to solve 2/5 x is equal to 7. Now this one is similar to the second style that we used to solve our last problem. It's hard to know what we multiply times 2/5 by in order to get to 7. So let's go ahead and we're going to use the reciprocal of 2/5 x to help us find what x is equal to. We know the reciprocal of 2/5 must be 5/2. So we're going to multiply this by 5/2. This is equal to 7 over 1. And we're going to multiply this times 5/2 because what we do on one side of the equation, what we multiply on, we have to do on the other side of the equation as well. 5 over 5 is 1, 2 over 2 is 1, so we get 1. And 1x is just equal to x, so now we can figure out what x is going to be equal to. 7 times 5 is 35. 1 times 2 is 2, so we get 35/2. Or we could report our answer as 17 and 1/2. Both of these answers would get us full credit, either the improper fraction or the mixed number. You pick which one you prefer to think about. We'll circle them both or box them both to show that they're both the same thing and they're both equal to x. Okay, now let's look at this one. X over 3 is equal to 9. This problem is saying what number divided by 3 is equal to 9? Well, can you think of a number divided by 3 that would be equal to 9? Maybe you can. Maybe you said 27, because 27 divided by 3 is equal to 9. So x is equal to 27. Use your mental math skills. Okay? They're very good. We need to practice them, but go ahead and report your answer just like this. Now the other way that we could do this problem, because we always have multiple ways to do most problems, would be to say, well, x over 3 is equal to 9, and what I need to do is I need to figure out what I need to multiply this by in order to get to 27. Well, x over 3 needs to be multiplied by 3 over 1. Okay, because 3 divided by 3 is going to give us 1, and 1 divided by a 1 in front of the x, because there's one x here, would cancel out. We'd be left with x. X is equal to 9 times, remember we multiplied by 3 over 1, so 9 times 3 over 1. Let's make that 9 over 1, so we've got fractions. 9 times 3 is 27. We have 27 over 1, which is the same thing as 27. We've got our final answer. They're both the same. Either method works for us, and you can use either method when you solve any type of problem like this. Alright, let's look at one more problem in this lesson. The final problem that we have is p over 3/2 is equal to 4 1/3. Notice we have a fraction as our denominator this time. So what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite. We're going to say p divided by 3/2. And I always like to make my main fraction bar within the overall fraction bigger. is going to be equal to, instead of working with a mixed number, let's work with an improper fraction. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 1 more is 13. So we get 13 thirds. Now what we have to do is figure out what we need to multiply 3 halves by in order to cancel it out. Well, if we multiply 3 halves by itself, 3 halves divided by 3 halves will be equal to 1. 3 halves divided by 3 halves, well, any number divided by itself equals 1. So the 3's cancel, the 2's cancel, and we're just left with the p. That's perfect because we want to know what p is equal to. So we're going to multiply the other side as well by the 3 halves because we multiplied it on the left-hand side. So we're going to multiply by 3 halves, and now we can go ahead and we can figure out what our answer is going to be. P is by itself because we said 3 halves divided by 3 halves is 1. 13 times 3 is 39. And 3 times 2 is going to give us 6. So we're looking at an answer of 39 over 6. Now we can reduce that. We could have simplified before we multiplied as well. Notice that the 3 and the 3's cancel, a 1 and a 1. So we must get this is going to be equal to 13 over 2. We could have gotten that by dividing both of these numbers by 3 as well. So 13 over 2 is the same thing as 6 and 1/2. So we've got our final answer. P is equal to 13 over 2. Now this time it doesn't matter if you have an improper fraction or a mixed number answer because we had both an improper fraction and a mixed number in the problem. Use your preference. The textbook will use the improper fraction all the time if there's a choice. Okay? You make your own choice because both of these answers are correct. Okay, we're going to continue this with our lesson practice on page 104 during our next class. Make sure you've got your notes completed. Okay, and have a nice afternoon.